Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. First name's Donnie, last name's Glover. In it to win it for the long haul, baby. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Hope you get up and enjoy some of this summertime. Summer is just whisking right on by. This is National Black Business Month, and we're all about celebrating our businesses. Do you have a business? If you have a business, just put it in the chat. Make a comment. Matter of fact, like this channel, share it, do all of that good stuff. And many thank you to our sponsors, our advertisers. Can't do it without you. Do you have a business? This is National Black Business Month. Good morning, Quandra Gaines. You know, the topic came up yesterday from Devon Truvell out there with the Play Black Wall Street game. He said that everyone should have a business, and I totally agree. You have a business anyway. Many of the people I know, in addition, they may have a job, but they also have a business. Why? To write it off. Duh. Write off items and expenses on your taxes. I'm not a tax professional, but I certainly have talked to enough accountants to know that you get write-offs. Quandra has a business, the Treasure Pearls. Okie dokie. Oh, I just need to get that cup to get going. The Treasure Pearls. I work with a lot of businesses. I've always found it interesting, the names we come up with. I know a man who's starting a security company. And for me, this is just me, I think people should be able to look at the name and tell exactly what you do. Now, of course, a family name, Chinos, Glovers, Johnsons, that could be anything. But the product, we should know what it is. Everybody knows what McDonald's is, but my God, they've been advertising since Jesus was alive. Speaking of McDonald's, do you notice that they have a million ways to sell one thing? I got one for you. Here's a bit of business trivia. What is McDonald's #1 asset? What is their #1 business? McDonald's. It's the same asset that 7-Eleven has. What is the #1 asset of McDonald's? You know, McDonald's is your kind of place. They feed you happy face. Hamburgers up your nose, French fries between your toes. And if you ever go there, they'll steal your underwear. McDonald's is your kind of place. What's McDonald's #1 asset? And I don't mean food. Anybody got it? Anybody know? It's the same thing that 7-Eleven has. Anybody listening? It's land. They own land. Every McDonald's has to have a location. Their number one asset is land. It takes me to something that Keith Clinkscale. I don't know if you know Keith Clinkscale. He's one of the many mentees of Dr. Tyrone Taborn, as am I. He said that there are 3 ways to get rich in America. He said that there are 3 ways, 3 major ways, 3 prime ways of getting rich in America. Number 1 is banking. Number 2 is media, i.e. Be More News and Black USA. And then the other is real estate. Real estate. Can you join us? Sure. Okay, thank you. I wanted to get you some excellent business advice. But real estate, banking, and media. Someone was telling me the story recently of Rupert Murdoch and how he built this Fox empire, how he picked things that would attract people, kind of like a 2-pronged approach. On one hand, they have shows that, I'm talking about the Fox network, that a lot of people like to watch. And then there are the news shows. And Murdoch has found at least for him, a very successful recipe of entertainment and news. And then they just ride it. Then they outwork the competition. They just outwork the competition. If you look at Fox, they're on when the other guys are not on. And that's why they're the most watched news station. They outwork the competition. Richard Muhammad, the editor-in-chief of the Final Call newspaper, I'll never forget the conversation he said, where he said, and I'm almost certain he told me that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said it to him, that these other news outlets may have more money and resources than the Final Call, but what they will not do is outwork us. So for me, got to put in the work. You're going to be successful in business. It takes time. It takes effort. I can tell you that all days when in business, all days are not sweet. But I believe this. If you're doing what the good Lord put you here to do, if he gave you the vision for something, God will give you the provision for something. I believe that. I also believe that fortune favors the bold. Some people talk about it, some people be about it. You got people that do and make things happen. You got people that watch things happen. And like Donnie Manuel said, you also have people who wonder what happened. You got people who make things happen, people who watch things happen. And according to Donnie Manuel, formerly of the Baltimore Times, you got people who wonder what happened. Everybody's not in the game. Some people are spectators. I want to be vending. I love business. I think my first job, besides shoveling snow, selling newspapers. Elementary school. My neighbor had I think he had a News American paper route. And all I knew was that he kept money. Thank you, Michael Randolph. Actual day is August 9th, next Tuesday. So a week from today, we will technically be 20 years old. I got the paperwork right here from 20 years ago. I established DM Global, Be More News. I was tired of working, well, not so much tired, but I didn't like working for somebody else, doing most of the work and getting a fraction of the coins. I did not like that math. That was fuzzy math. I always wanted to do my own. I mean, my dad had a funeral home. I don't really know how long I could have ended up working for someone else. Not that I can't. Just enjoy working for myself. Can't imagine it any other way. Guess I could work a 9 to 5. Not against authority figures, especially if they know what they're doing. For you people who do have jobs, a lot of times you work for people who don't know what they're doing. Trying to be polite here. Now I understand rules and regulations, but I also understand difficult people. And again, people who just don't know what the hell they're doing. They got the job because they knew somebody. And that happens. Hey, it's all about relationships, right? Challenge is when you get somebody in there that don't know what they're doing. See, they cause a whole ruckus for everybody who does know what they're doing, especially if they come in there with some type of, they favored by somebody at the top. Like you hire your goofy cousin to work at your business. Let me tell you something. Family would be the first one fired, because family should understand better than anyone that of the sacrifices involved in running a business. For me, family would get fired first and foremost. As my son, I carry on the principles my mom gave me. At 18, you're leaving. Mess around, be homeless messing with me. Because we gave you the skills. We gave you everything you needed. We gave you the time to nurture and develop those skills. And what you choose to do with it, well, that's up to you. It might sound harsh, but we're building men and women out here. We're not making excuses. I got to share with you that quote on excuses. Some people missed it. I got it from Barbara Robinson. And I love it. Need to commit it to memory. Excuses don't accomplish anything. Excuses, you ready? Excuses are tools of the incompetent, which lead to monuments of nothingness, and those who indulge in them will be seldom capable of anything. Let me read it to you again. Excuses are tools. You got some feedback there, Mr. Ball. I get it. Excuses are tools of the incompetent, which lead to monuments of nothingness, and those who indulge in them will be seldom capable of anything. It's National Black Business Month, Bob. How you doing?
Okay. Good morning. How are you, Donnie? Congratulations, by the way,
Oh, we just getting
to you.
started. Why?
For going around the barn a few times.
Okay. Appreciate it. How you been? Great to see you.
Hey, I'm here. I'm vertical. Uh, I'm like everybody else. I got issues. I'm working through them one day at a time by grace. That's all I can
Congratulations
do. Thank you.
on the election.
Thank you. Um, November hasn't arrived yet, so so the fat lady really hasn't sung completely, but she's warming up pretty well. Unless we get some surprises, I think I've congratulated the two candidates that I supported most heavily, which was Wes and Brooke Learman. and I've talked to both of them since then, and we're beginning to put together some things now, even in advance of November, so that
because
hopefully
it's not
the issues. Go ahead.
because we should be we have to be proactive with this. We can't
Yes,
wait.
that's exactly right. And so I'm putting together some things now with both of them, with Brooke and with Wes. Hopefully we can hit the ground, and hopefully the people who don't share our vision or don't have a vision won't become obstacles to the direction that we ought to be moving in. Hopefully, or if they are, they'll be easily moved. Hopefully, I've come
West
up with.
won
Go ahead.
West won some districts on the Eastern Shore that people weren't expecting.
Well, not on the Eastern Shore, in Western Maryland. Uh, I mean, he surprised me. I mean, the percentage of black vote was much higher than what I thought. And so he won without the significant new turnout that we all predicted that he had to have in order to win. He won based upon the people, because the people who came all voted for him. So so now we got Moore, we got Learman, and we got Anthony Brown at the top.
Wait a minute, you got two statewide elected officials who are black.
That's right. That is
This is
exactly right.
historical.
It is indeed historical. And I struggle, and I think we those who stop long enough to think about it struggle with coming with defining what it really means to be black. Uh, and so in recent times I've turned to history to look for a definition, and sometimes we define what is by defining what is not. And so I turned to Harriet Tubman, and those who are not black are the ones that she said she didn't free because they didn't know they were slaves. You remember Harriet said, I could have freed more of them if they'd known they were slaves. Well, there's still those among us who don't know that.
Well,
And
I shared that very quote on Facebook, and Facebook called me a liar. Then I had to go back and prove them wrong.
right,
Now you from down there.
right.
She's credited with freeing some 70 slaves.
Well, not only
However,
that. Go ahead.
however,
Okay.
at Pumbayou River, with the help of the Union Army, she freed almost 800 people at one time.
And as you know, she was a scout in the Union Army
And a spy.
for many years. Yeah,
And I would say the
and
equivalent of a Navy SEAL.
exactly, exactly. But one of the things that she did, that she endured, and I can't imagine how unbearable the pain must have been. She underwent brain surgery in Boston without any
And that man
anesthesia.
hit her with the anvil. He hit her in the head with an
Yeah,
anvil, right?
she finally she had seizures. She couldn't take it anymore. She went to a Boston neurosurgeon who conducted surgery on her, but because she didn't trust him because he was white, she refused to allow him to put her to sleep. She bit on a bullet during the entire procedure. She bit on a bullet during the entire procedure. He drilled a hole in her head to relieve the pressure, sewed her back up, and she got up and walked away. That's that that you can't that was calling her a woman doesn't embrace her full scope of her humanity. You got to recognize, as she did, that she could only do the things she did because she was not just inspired by, but led by, and ultimately, unquestionably believed in Almighty God. That's the only way. That's the only
Mr.
way.
Bob, I'm not going to say that white people can't paint black people, but we have our own artists.
Yes.
There's a mural down on the Eastern Shore painted by a non-black, and it's discussed all over the country, all over the world. Culture
Well,
vultures.
Donnie, say it again. I'm sorry.
Culture vultures.
Oh, yeah. Donnie, you know,
Everybody wants our look. Everybody want our culture, but they don't want our struggle. You can't have one without the
well,
other. And let me tell
but
you
there are
about these
those
murals.
that,
Look, there's a mural on Pennsylvania Avenue done by an Iranian on
mm,
a black business, and it talks about immigrants. My people weren't no damn immigrants, and I'm talking about how people try to rewrite history through art.
there are, I mean, you know, when Bill Barr, one of his departing messages as he left the AG's office under Trump was, you know, that the winners write the history books, right? The winners write the history books. And so you what you find going back is that the first thing that conquerors did, colonialists did, when they were overtaking any existing civilization was destroy their culture. And the first thing they did to do that was destroy their books, burn the books, destroy the artifacts, or steal them if they had gold in them. Either way, but take away anything that they could use going forward to for self-identification purposes, not just for self-identification, but for self-validation. Anything that they could use to establish that they had value before the colonialists took over. Anything that would establish that they had value that other than what was given to them by the conquerors, by the oppressors, all of that had to be destroyed. So they started. You started at ground zero. I'm your mama and your daddy. You have to come to me for whatever you need or want, and you have no desires but those that I teach you to have, and you have no gifts other than those that I train you to exercise. And that's how you destroy your people. That's how you destroy people. It's not the people, the people are the civilizations destroyed not just by the ones who are killed. That's not the generation that establishes the order of things. It's the generations yet unborn who are born into the aftermath of the conquering, who are born with nothing, who are born at ground zero, and have only to look to the conquerors for their identity. That's how you destroy a civilization. That's how you destroy people. And unfortunately, you know, we've come to believe we believe that you know we were nobody till somebody said they loved us. We were nobody till somebody said they loved us. Not realizing that the only one who ever had to love us and the one who loved us unconditionally was the Almighty God. And what he gave none other can give and none can take away. And I've come to believe, as Malcolm did after his trip, that all our brothers aren't the same color. All our brothers aren't the same color, and neither are all our enemies. And neither are all our enemies.
What do you mean?
So there you have it. Say it again.
What do you mean?
So what I mean is, you know, I can, you know, for example, Brooke Learman is a sister. She's not black by color, but she's a sister because of the level of commitment that she's demonstrated, at least in my opinion. She's as much a sister as anybody black that I know.
I heard
And
her
there are
say that
others
she's a civil rights
there
leader.
are others who are my color who are not brothers because
Well,
they
I heard her
still
say in
don't
her
know they're
commercial
slaves.
that she's a civil
Say it
rights
again.
leader. I
Yeah,
heard Brooke
yeah.
Learman say in her commercial that she's a civil rights leader.
I don't know, but I don't. I don't know about that. I don't know whether she's a civil rights leader or not.
I just never
All I
heard
know is
that
that she kept.
in my 20 some years of covering politics. I never
Yeah,
heard that ever.
I had neither, but I would tell you she kept her word to me.
Oh, that's
She
important.
never told me she never told me something that I determined to be untrue, and she never said she was going to do something that she didn't do.
Well, hold up, Mr. Bob. You
And she,
unapologetically black. Why you ain't go with the black man?
I'll tell you why. Because black is a
Dun,
statement of
dun,
relationship.
dun.
It's a statement of relationship. And the part of the relationship that matters most is keeping your word to one another. I met with
Dun,
Tim at
dun,
the
dun,
at the Terra
dun.
at the Terra Cafe. Me and your friend Terrence Dixon, he's the owner there, and we said we will create a chitlin circuit just for you. We will give you we will create an opportunity for you to go to all the major quote major black restaurants throughout the city of Baltimore to deliver your message. All you got to do is call the next day, and we'll put it together at no cost to you. That call came 3 months later. That horse was out the barn and gone. That train had left the station. Because being black is not a color, it's a statement of relationship. And part of the relationship is I got to be able to count on you to do what you say
So,
you're going to do.
so I'm going to say this, that during this last election, I saw, I lost my train of thought. It'll come back to me.
All right. So how's it feel to you after being involved in all these being unapologetically black from the time you could speak your name? You tell me. You're Baltimore. You're the Baltimorean. I'm not. You tell me what you've seen over the last. I don't know how. What are you? 30, 35 years old now. Tell me. Tell me what it's meant to you to be unapologetically black in Baltimore over the years since you were raised in Sandtown, Winchester.
So let me give you the story. My first memories were East Baltimore till the age of 9. I lived above my dad's funeral home. My dad, my mom, myself. Then we moved to West Baltimore and we lived in a house. My first time living in a house. My family returned to West Baltimore. My dad, I remember I got in trouble and I had to go before the court commissioner ran there Western District. And I was mumbling. And my father, and I told you, you remind me of him. I remember him looking down at me, scared to death. And he said, boy, don't mumble. Speak up. Speak up for yourself. And I made myself a promise that one day in Western District courtroom that I would be able to articulate for myself. He helped me to realize how small I looked. And I know he was a Mason, and God knows what kind of signs Masons pass on to each other, what have you. But while I knew I was covered, I knew I had messed up. I knew I could do better. And that's one thing he would often say, we can do better than this. But for me, my foundation comes from the funeral industry, where I saw my father take me to school before he went to work. And I either went to school in a limo, or if it was a funeral day, I got the hearse. Do you know how it is to go to Lamel in a hearse? Well, I thought I knew, but maybe I didn't. Nobody messes with somebody who gets out of a hearse, even at Lamel. But unapologetically black for my dad was knowing your history. He was not a believer in Africans. He and I differed on that one point. I believe Africans will get Africa together. He had no faith whatsoever in Africans, but I do believe, and I think a lot of our mentality comes because he had never been to Africa. Not saying he didn't know about Africa, but a lot of times we get fed misinformation by our enemies about who our friends are. We see it in the news all of the time. We can't like Sheila Dixon. We can't like Marilyn Mosby. We can't like this person. Other people are trying to tell us who our friends are, just like other people are trying to tell us what the news is. They want to tell us about the squeegee kids every single day. Time out. Here in West Baltimore, we don't see squeegee kids. We see addicts who don't match the majority demographic in our neighborhoods, all hours of the day and night, in the alleys, in the trash cans, shooting dope in public, defecating on the sidewalk. I saw a man who does not match the majority demographic. I got that terminology from Boyd Rutherford, by the way. I saw him shooting dope outside the Avenue Market. I'm like, sir, you cannot shoot dope in public. And he quickly took the needle. Let me tell you something about a heroin addict. They will quickly pull that needle out as fast as they put it in and get to stepping. I understand addiction. Been there. I get it. But right now it's lawlessness. And so for me, unapologetically black mean call a spade a spade. The dope man is a scourge on our community. I was watching American Gangster. Now, as hard as I am on the dope man, American physicians are the same dope man. I got that from a pharmacist over the weekend. That a lot of these physicians are pushing Oxycontin and other drugs on the people to get kickbacks from the pharmaceutical companies, but these drugs aren't really healing the people. So unapologetically black for me is thinking for yourself and having some idea that one, the black man was the first one on earth. And all you got to do is check the DNA of the San Bushmen of Namibia. Everything started in Southern Africa and migrated out. So everything, good and bad, comes out of Africa. I think a lot of our history has been twisted. Like you said, libraries have been raided, burned to the ground, stolen. Nobody goes around. We have never went to England and dug up King Charles, King Edward, dug up their remains, took them and brought them back to our country. But the European has gone into Egypt, dug up mummies, our ancestors, and brought the gold all across Africa. Just take. And I wonder, is there anywhere that this people have gone where they've done good? They went to the Indians and gave the Indians smallpox. If they had crack cocaine, they'd have threw that on the Indians too. But we're in a world and unapologetically black meaning. Now, let me tell you one more thing about my daddy. He never let me play victim. He said, this is my last comment. He said, I asked him when I was 7 years old, did he hate white people? He said, I don't hate anybody. I hate what some people do. But he said, the first person you need to get mad at about slavery are those greedy ass African kings who sold your ass over here. Now, let me say, I have not found slavery in my digging and my research just yet. I'm not saying we don't have some white people up our family tree. My mama was light skinned, my grandma, both my grandmamas was light skinned. I imagine some white people in there, but I don't know them. And that's their damn fault. They should have made themselves known. So there you have it.
Well, I did my daughter, my youngest daughter, 1 year um, did the ancestry.com thing for me. She paid for the thing for me to take the test and send it in and all of that. And by the way, I will add that's the same daughter that recognized that over the years there was something that I'd always been yearning for in terms of knowledge, and that was I wanted to know more about my father. See, I didn't grow up with my father like you. In fact, I didn't even know who he was till I was about 5 years old, and didn't have a relationship with him really until I was 16 or 17, and that's and that started on a bad note because he let me use his car to go to my junior prom and told me I had to have it back. It was a Friday night. He had to have it back by 7 o'clock Saturday morning because he had to go to work, and I knew I had no intention of doing that. I was taking the junior prom this girl that I've been eyeing since first grade. And if she was willing to stay out to the next day, I was no way I was gonna take her home just so he could have his car. That wasn't gonna happen, and it didn't happen. Okay, so, but then the real relationship with him came one day out of that incident as we were walking down the street, both of us cooling off. He mad because he didn't get to work. I'm mad because of the audacity of him to be mad at me after all them years I'm sitting in the window waiting for him to show up on Sunday and he never came. So after we walking down the street cooling off and we get to talking about my mother, I never knew what happened between them. I never knew why they didn't get married. I never knew why. Yeah, but my mother had a serious problem with alcohol, and I complained about that. I mean, Friday and Saturday night was like the OK Corral in my grandmother's house. I was the oldest of six, and I had to give every my other brothers a place to hide so that they wouldn't get hit by the throwing bottles or get cut by the knives or get shot even. I had to give them a place to hide, and I grew up fearful of that personally. So anyway, so he said to me, my father said to me, after I complained about my mother's conduct during all those years with my stepfather, who I hated, uh, he said, she's the only mother you ever gonna have. I stopped. I said, wait a minute. What do you mean by that? And I thought about it, and I said, he's right. And that statement that day changed the relationship because until that day, I hardly would even speak to my mother because I was so angry of her making me live in fear every Friday and Saturday night. I was so angry at her having me. I had to designate places for my. It was six of us. Everybody had to have a hiding place, right? And I was there. I had to assign people where to go hide. So anyway, and then after that, for the first and only time in my life, when I was 17 and was going to Morgan, my freshman year at Morgan, my mother and father drove me to Morgan together. That's the only time, the first time and the only time in my life I ever seen my mother and father together. And I never saw him alive again after that day. He told me when he was leaving, he said, I'll see you Thanksgiving. And for the first time in my life, I felt like a whole person. I didn't have to go to school anymore and write down Roy Rogers as my name, which I used to do all the time because I like cowboys. I write down it because I had no identity. I had no father. So I put down any name. It didn't matter to me. So anyway, he said,
How
I'll
come
see
you
you
ain't become a
Thanksgiving.
bank robber?
Because there is a God and he expressed himself in my life through a grandmother and a grandfather who raised me and put that God in me in ways and at times that I didn't know or appreciate. But I never saw him on Thanksgiving because about a month later he was shot to death. But in my grandmother's house, there was always a God. And I sometimes
You had a
resented him
praying
because of,
grandmother.
look, let me tell you something. If you ain't had a
Alabama.
praying grandmother, it, we are here, whether we know it or not, because of praying grandmothers.
I said,
They
Grandma,
didn't
you
have to
pray
be
for
out.
all of us.
That's
She said,
exactly
I
right.
pray for all.
It-
I said, by name? She said, by name. I was like, Grandma, that's a lot of people.
we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for praying grandmothers. Because grandmother didn't care what your name was. Grandma only knew
Somebody
that she.
pray
Yes, indeed. That's
for
right. That's
me.
right.
Had me
That's
on
exactly
their
right.
mind. Took
That's
the
right. I
time
had a
and prayed
prayer
for
grandmother and a
me.
prayer. praying grandmother, the praying grandfather, because only by grace are we even here today. You ask why am I not why am I not at Jessup Cut? Why am I not 6 feet? Why did they bury me before Vernon Sims last Saturday or Elijah before that? I take no credit for it, because if I think back over the things I've done in my life, by if justice was served, we'd all be dead, or a lot more of us would be dead. But mercy prevailed, and not justice. You got to be
Grace
careful
getting what
asking
we
for
don't
justice.
deserve, and mercy not
That's
getting what
right.
we do deserve.
That's exactly right. You got to be careful when you start asking for justice. You don't
Does
really
that
want
apply to Donald Trump?
that. Trump to me is almost like the Antichrist. Trump to me is in this day and time what I consider to be in the incarnate representative of the Antichrist. He he. But it's not all his fault. He was raised that way. He was raised to think of nobody but him. He was raised to consider nobody but him. He was raised to never be able to accept anything other than what he wanted. He was raised that way. Now, doesn't mean he's not responsible for what he's done. Just mean it wasn't his fault.
Yes, it was.
But a whole lot of
Excuses
folks.
are
Go
tools
ahead.
of the incompetent, which lead to monuments of nothingness, and those who indulge in them will seldom be capable of anything.
Donnie,
He
it's a
doesn't take
thin line
responsibility for
between.
anything. He's a grown man.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. And there's a thin line between an explanation and an excuse and a defense. The three separate and distinct things: an explanation, an excuse, and a defense. Um, people see
I'm
an
gonna tell you what
excuse.
happened. I got it
Go
in a
ahead.
nutshell.
Go ahead.
He didn't get his ass whipped.
Oh no, no. He was raised by a German nanny. So no, he didn't. He didn't. He did. He. You know, if my grandmama had raised him, he'd be a different person today. If your grandmama had raised him, he'd be a different person today. He'd be a different person today. And the thing with it is, you know, and you raised Trump, but nobody asked who. People keep talking about his base, but nobody talks about who's in the base. What is the commonality? What is the thread that really holds them together? Is it the economy? Hell no. Most of the
It's
people in there
fear.
support him, and they're unemployed.
Fear.
What is the pardon? Fear?
Fear.
I
Fear
don't.
of a black
You know.
planet.
Oh yeah. Okay. I can. Well, but fear is not a cause. It's a symptom. Fear is not a
Low
cause.
self,
Fear
low
is not. Fear is.
self-esteem. A bunch of little
Pardon?
boys that didn't know who they are.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a TV show. I don't know I don't know how many people watched it or appreciate it. It's called the Designated Survivor with
I
Kiefer
saw
Sutherland, the guy that used to play 24.
Kiefer Sutherland.
Kiefer Sutherland, yeah. I think they only made three seasons of it, but it's worth watching. It's worth watching. Anyway. So yeah, you got to think about and when you talk about what the common thread is between the people who are in Trump's base, I think of Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lamb when he was talking to Jodie Foster and he said, "What do you covet, Miss Starling? Starling, what do you covet? You covet what you see. You covet what you see." And so when people start talking about what's the commonality, you look for people that look like you. That's the problem that the media has, and the mainstream, and the Democrats have, and the Republicans have, which distance themselves from Trump because they share the same commonality. The same thing that Trump used to attract people, they used. They used it maybe to a different degree, but they used the fact that they were white. That was the main attraction. That was the main attraction. And that's why, in spite of everything else, you turn on the news, why is there so much time and attention given to somebody who lost? I miss the class, and losers get to dictate what in the class that I took. Losers had to wait till the next time till the game was played again, and they get back. But not this loser. This loser gets to play the game even though he lost. We say he's lied about what happened, but we treat him like he's telling the truth. We treat him like he's entitled to respect just because he told the lie. All right, I'm finished. This is your anniversary. I'm finished.
No, I want to know how they're gonna lock him up.
I hope so. I hope so, but I doubt it. I doubt it. Donald Trump, in my opinion, will never spend a day in jail. I don't think Donald Trump will ever spend a day in jail. And he'll never go there to visit anybody either.
Will he pay for his crimes?
No, absolutely not.
Will
Absolutely
his
not.
children pay for
Because
his crimes?
because for him to be convicted and to pay for his crime, he would have to convict America, because that's who made him.
Okay.
You see, because
I just want to have
and
reparations.
America, well, it's not. It'd be a reparations, but America has never admitted its crime. And America has never acknowledged its debt. And when I talk to a group of white folks sometimes, and I say, well, I'm going to say something, and you're probably going to get angry, and then I'm going to tell you after I say it why you're angry. I'll say something like, America owes black folk a debt, and I look around the room and there with red faces all over the place. And I said, why are you angry? I said, America owes general obligation bonds, debt. America owes debt to a lot of the country, the federal treasury. Why do you get so angry when I say America owes black people a debt? Why? Because you think you own America. You think you own America, and you deny that you owe me anything. That's your problem. And
That's a
until we
liar
face
and a
that,
thief.
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And there's no confession to be forthcoming. In fact, not only do they not confess, but now we want to rewrite history as though the crime never occurred. And if we don't stop it, if we don't teach our children like your father taught you, right, we're going to raise another generation of the people that Harriet Tubman said didn't know they were slaves.
So
Okay?
we got this new generation of young people out here who, I had one young lady, she was running for office. She had her campaign manager text me to get her on the show. And so let me just say to those coming behind me, I'm not that old, but if you want me, pick up the phone. Don't text me. I think it's impersonal. I shared it with my daughter. Pick up the phone. A phone call eliminates poor communication. The meaning gets lost in a text. If it's more than 2 or 3 lines, you should pick up the phone anyway, because too much gets lost. But we have a generation now coming up who think that you can grow relationships with impersonal means of communication. I fall back to you, Mr. Bob.
Well, I go even farther than that, Donnie. I said, don't even call me. Write it down. Send me an email. And the reason for that is we use words that we don't define. We just assume that they mean the same thing, that you understand it to mean the same thing that I intended it to mean. And I'm not going to make that assumption. You'll never hear me call anybody a liberal. You'll never hear me call anybody a conservative. You'll never hear me call anybody because I have no idea what they mean. I don't know what those words mean, and I particularly don't know what they mean to you. So if my objective is to communicate with you, which means you must understand what I'm saying, why would I use words that I don't understand that we have the same understanding of what they mean? That means I'm not really communicating with you. I'm just listening. I just want to hear myself talk. And so I say write it down. Because if you write it down, at least you'll have to take the time. Hopefully, you'll take time to think about it. Hopefully, you'll take time to think about what I'm going to think about it when I read it. And hopefully, when I respond, it'll be no misunderstanding about the only time. The only reason I'd be a misunderstanding, you used a word that I didn't understand the meaning of, or you use it in a way that's not commonly understood, and you didn't tell me. And that's on you. That ain't on me.
The last thing I want to share with you, Mr. Bob, is how can we expect our young people to act civilized when I'm looking in the streets of Baltimore and I'm seeing grown people acting a plumb fool? Older people throwing down trash, older people just doing Baltimore off the hook. I can't blame the young people when I see old people acting the plumb fool, Mr. Bob.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The good thing is it ain't everybody. The good thing is hopefully those kids will get to a place where they see grown people acting like grown people should act, and they'll begin to know to be able to discern the difference, and they'll pick the right one to follow. That's our only hope.
I
And,
want to
and
give
praying
you
grandmothers.
from my dad. My
Huh?
dad, he gave me this one line. He said, with a closed hand, nothing gets in and nothing gets out. With an open hand, there are endless possibilities. The moral to the story is to help somebody.
That's exactly right.
Good
Your
deal.
dad, your
Big
dad
Papa
was a
Pop.
wise man. Your dad was a wise man.
Good deal. Thank you for your time this morning. Mr. Honolulu will be here at 10 o'clock with the morning show. Thank you again, Mr. Bob. Good morning, world.
See you later.